Now I want to talk about, what do you do? I think the greatest thing in recovery is being able to come back. Like you can be like, I'm not working a program, or I've been there, like when Chris died, I wasn't working a program at all. I needed him to die in order to be like, I need fucking help.
Yeah.
So like, is that something you talk about with clients?
If it's appropriate, yes. I find that not everybody wants to hear about my recovery, especially that early in recovery, because I don't want to give them anything. It's so easy, we talk about comparing versus relating in recovery. It's so easy to be like, well, I didn't do that, or I'm older than that, or whatever. I'm not from New York. Find something to be different about. So I try not to talk about myself as much unless somebody asks. But if they ask, yeah, I do talk about it. And I talk about, how the difference of how I know I can feel in recovery and how I have felt in the last. I was cruising for a little bit, but the last couple years have been rough emotionally as a result of me not working a program.
And having kids.
Yeah, the last 3 years, I bought a house, my dad died, we had a global pandemic, I got married, I had 2 children, I, worked full time through the pandemic. A lot of shit has happened that changes you. I think having babies, I underestimated how that would change my brain too.
Yeah, talk about that. People talk about like parenting in early recovery, but what about early parenting in recovery?
It's interesting.
Especially for the woman.
I look at things in a different lens because to some degree there's legitimacy to why I didn't go to meetings, right? Like everything went online. I was working crazy. I was super pregnant. I was dealing, coordinating hospice for my dad. I was, finalizing a mortgage. I was figuring out moving our family. Then I was settling his estate. And I had this 6-month-old baby. When the fuck was I going to go to a meeting? I tried in the beginning to log on to the Zoom meetings. They just weren't for me. I just didn't get into them. And what was your question? I lost my train of thought.
I don't know. I think you answered the question.
Okay, great. Perfect.
You didn't like this. You didn't like this question.
What was it? I don't remember.
It was being like a mom.
Oh, being a mom.
Being a mom in early recovery, and not being in recovery and then having kids, and how you keep a program.
It changes it. You have to find, in the beginning, I wanted to recapture. There was a sweet spot in my recovery, like 3 years sober, where I was working in a restaurant. I had no responsibilities except I would get up early. I'd go to my 7 a.m. meeting. I'd go for a hike with my dog for like an hour. I'd come back. I'd go to the gym. I'd do whatever the fuck I wanted. And then I'd go work at my restaurant job. And life was amazing. I had the right combination of things.
Freedom, money, recovery, all that shit.
Yeah, being outside, which is really important to me. Exercise, which is important. You can't tell by looking at me, but important to me. And so I had these kids and I just wanted that. I was like, but I can't do that now, right? And so people kept saying to me, well, you have to find what you can do, right? You can't just sit around lamenting for when you had all that freedom, because you don't now. And so that's been really hard, finding balance. As a working mom, I feel guilty if I don't go right home from work and have dinner with them and put them to bed. I feel like I'm missing the only time that I have with them. But in my little breakdown recently, I realized if I don't make the time to go to a meeting, then I'm yelling at my kids all the fucking time, and that's not the mom that I want to be. That's not the woman I want to be. So that's been the biggest challenge, is okay, I have to find a new way to do this program thing, because I don't have the freedom I used to do to just, I'm feeling a little squirrely, I think I'll go to a meeting. I have other humans I have to take care of.
And how do you guide other mothers in the same situation? Like, how do you like when they're not making time for their shit, because it's hard.
Yeah.
Like my family doesn't love that I leave every morning for an hour, but it's like, I got to do it.
I don't practice what I preach. I tell them all the things that I should do myself.
So what are the things you say, and what are the things, like if I'm your client, what do you tell me to do?
If they're a mom and they're struggling with how do they do this recovery thing while they're parenting, I tell them the best thing they can do for their kids is to put themselves first. That without this recovery program, they can't show up for the kids that they want to, the way they want to. I tell them that this is a a very, in retrospect, or in the grand scheme of things, a very small piece of time to put toward yourself in order to have a long-term benefit with your kids.
Right. And I want to